Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the BuzzStream podcast. My name is Vince Nero. I'm your host, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Katy Powell. She's the PR director and co-founder at Bottled Imagination, which is a fantastic agency out in the UK. Today, we're going to be talking all about creative ideas. Bottled Imagination is, just a super creative idea. Agency. We're going to talk a little bit about their tagline because I really love it, and I think, to me, we're at this point in the digital PR space where it feels like we're reaching a little bit of a stale point, and a lot of people reusing the same ideas. And every now and then you see these great ideas pop up. And I just think, we could inject some more creativity into things, and, there's more competition than ever. So the need to stand out is more important than ever. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I can't wait to do it. Before I do, I just want to remind everyone, like, subscribe, comment, share this stuff with your colleagues. And the more you do, the more I can have great guests on like Katy. And second reminder, before we get into it, check out ListIQ, the media list building tool for any PR person who's trying to build lists that are hyper relevant right from Google News. It's just awesome time saver. I was just using it myself today, doing a lot more pitching of my own content. It's awesome. And it was a lot of hard work went into it. We're getting some great responses and feedback. So check it out. You could start up for free. And yeah, that's it. Let's get into this. Katy, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, so I'm going to start here. Sorry, I'm going to move my mic up here for a second. Our website, Bottled Imagination. Let me start with your the tagline that I saw on the website. We're more creative than any other digital PR and SEO agency, and we can demonstrate our results better than traditional PR agencies. Let's start there. Like I said, I love it, and I do think you guys do some really creative stuff. We're going to talk about all that today, but what to you makes Bottled Imagination so creative?
Yeah, I think that tagline, perfectly sums up kind of our positioning in the market, and also why we kind of launched the agency to begin with. I think when we launched, we sort of felt like there was a bit of a gap, kind of what you were just saying before, around creativity within digital PR. But then there's also a gap with measurement and ROI in traditional PR. So we feel like we sit perfectly in that spot where we've got the ideas that the traditional PR agencies we've got them, but we're able to bring the measurement side from the digital PR, and we're able to kind of be in that sweet spot between both sides. I think what makes us creative, I think we say yes more than we say no. Like, I love being in a brainstorm with the team, and I'm like, go bigger, like, let's try it, let's go. We've never been the kind to kind of put tight parameters on ideation, because I think it's so important. And I think we really are trying to take ideas up to the next levels. We do feel like a lot of agencies kind of stop halfway through a really good idea, like amazing, but they just stop. And it's like, wow, let's keep going, let's go bigger, let's go on different channels, let's think more like an ad agency even. Why are we kind of limiting ourselves with, traditional digital PR formats, maps, stream jobs, indexes, all this kind of stuff? We can be thinking like an advertiser or a creative, but bringing that measurement to it as well. So that's kind of how we launched and how the positioning kind of came to be.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's tough because I think for a lot of agencies, there is this impetus to kind of formulate or create these content formats that are repeatable, right? Because you need to scale this. It's a business, there's still slim margins. It's small margins for error, right? The small room for error in a lot of these campaigns. And the bigger you go, the more risk you have. But I wonder, can you talk a little bit about, maybe let's start here, kind of mitigating some of this risk, because I think that maybe is the biggest blocker for some people. They're afraid to go big or go creative outside the bounds of what they know works, because they're afraid of the results not cashing in.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we build our ideas, we're very to make sure we've got multiple angles of everything we do. So if we've got something that is really, really creative and it is like a stunt or like a competition with a client or something that's a bit different, we've got something else going on. So we might have data that provides a kind of additional story, or we might have something else that is more of kind of a backup angle, so that if the creative doesn't quite land how we've maybe expected it to. It's PR after all. We can't guarantee anything is going to land ever, but we can be pretty sure. But we can have backup angles to support the original kind of creative story as well. And we're quite kind of, when we do, I can talk more about ideation process and things as well, but we do kind of stress test the ideas quite a lot and look at what's been covered before. Do we actually think it's going to work? Have we got proof that stories like this have worked in similar industries or kind of, similar kind of campaigns? Have they worked? It also helps with sign off from a client's point of view then as well, because you can be like, look, we've seen this work before, or we've done this before. Trust us. But if that doesn't land, it's cool. We've got 5 other angles we can go out with. So we're kind of helping ourselves with that process and the way we pitch it, and just to kind of minimize that risk.
Yeah. Talk to me, so I remember when I was with Siege Media, like we would have this big process for making sure these ideas had legs. And one of the bits was looking at other campaigns, like you said, looking at similar campaigns to see mainly backlinks, how many links did it get? Because obviously that's like a big driver. Sometimes social, sometimes, we look at maybe Reddit, and if there was, a lot of upvotes or something, like it had some type of social proof. I'm curious, what are kind of some of those drivers for you that an idea is actually worth doing?
Yeah, I really feel like creativity and process don't go together. Like, I do feel like I'm not a process person. Like, Luke will probably attest to that. But I kind of just think like sometimes you can just come up with ideas and you're like, yeah, let's do it. And you don't really know how you got there, but you just didn't. But I do think we have got an ideation process that we've put in place. People go rogue sometimes, that's fine. But we kind of start with, like, we call it a theme analysis, and we will look at all the different topics surrounding the client that we might want to talk about. And we've got various tools that we use to do that. And then we look at mapping that out on kind of a press coverage, like, is it going to land in the press versus is it on brand, and make like a bit of a matrix there. So we can start to plot out the themes that we feel are going to land, but also are on brand, because obviously we know relevancy is super, super key. And we want to make sure we're not going to more than like 1 or 2 kind of steps removed from the product and the brand. And that kind of allows us to kind of, stress test whether we think that topic's going to work, and is the way it's being spoken about in the press the right sentiment to what our client wants to talk about. Then we've got those topics, because that can happen a lot. The way that the topic is covered in the press actually isn't quite right. We actually don't want to go anywhere near that conversation.
Right.
And then we'll go away and build those topics out and kind of think of formats and ideas that we think are going to work, because we've already done that kind of, is it press worthy as a topic test? Then, of course, looking at things like similar campaigns, how many backlinks, kind of same as what you said, backlinks, social reach, Reddit, anything like that. The thing with that, I think, is we don't want to find a campaign that worked really well, reskin it for our client and go. Like, we want to be coming up with things that are new. So we look at it, but it wouldn't be sort of like, everything we look at.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of press-worthy ideas? Because I think there are some great ideas. Like, it sounds like, I like this idea of like thematic, you're starting at the company, and like, what are all the things that it could potentially touch? What are the things you don't want it to touch, right? But like, when you have an idea, like you said, like a lot of that type of like creativity is hard to create a process for, right? And ultimately, even if an idea has been done and seems like it's got some legs to it, like understanding if something's going to be press worthy, I think that is still a big leap for, especially like junior people if you're teaching. Yeah. But for anybody, if you're at a company, probably the hardest thing that I've had to do to, like, if I'm ever talking to a brand who comes to us and is like, we're using BuzzStream, but like, we've got this great idea. But we're just not getting any links from it, and like, you look at the stuff, the outreach is fine, the email is fine, but like the idea is just not that great. So like, what makes it a press-worthy idea?
It's a really hard one, because sometimes I've had campaigns in the brainstorm, I'm like, this is an award winner, like, it's going to be amazing, and then like nothing. And you're just like, I don't even know how to do PR anymore. Like, am I even any good? But that happens to everyone, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But no, I think press-worthy, like I said, I think the topic analysis is really important, because the tool we use, you can literally see there's been 10,000 articles written about this topic over the last year versus this topic that's got 2. Because we can also do it on like a publication basis as well and be like, we want to land in Vogue. How do Vogue talk about this? You can start to actually...
Right.
It's quite strategic, really, and like quite data-led. You can start to think, okay, topics are talked about. These publications in this way, if we want to land on there with this topic, we need to do something which fits. It's going to fit into what they talk about. We've done things like journalist roundtables, things like that before, which is obviously a better way of doing that, because then you can literally be like, right, we want to talk about this topic. How do you talk about it? And they'll... Yeah. Which is so valuable. It's hard to get those journalists in one room, but we've done it a couple of times. And it's it's so great because you can make assumptions from these tools and reading the press. But to actually speak to someone and go, would you cover this? And they go, no, because of X, Y, Z. Right. Okay. Makes sense. I'll never pitch something like that again then, like, because I'm wasting my time, wasting your time. So I think where we can speak to journalists, obviously that's gold. But if not, then data as far as we can to work out whether it's something. I just think you can't shoehorn topics into publications that they don't want to talk about very easily.
Yeah.
And then I think obviously just like genuinely of interest, is it something that you want to read? Like, do you want to read it, or do you find it interesting?
Yeah.
Good test.
Yeah. Is it more important for you to create ideas that are going to be wide reaching, or is it more important to get into those key publications? Like like you said, creating it just for Vogue because that's Vogue.
Yeah. It depends on the strategy. I think if link velocity is the strategy we're going for, we'll set like a minimum DA that we're going to count, and then we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much a advocate of different press releases for different kinds of audiences. Like, we're not kind of a spray and pray agency. It's not what we do. So I think with those ones, like if we feel like it's got mass appeal, we're still going to target different people differently, like we always will. However, something that we're doing more recently with some of our clients is where velocity is important to an extent, but we're looking to build niche links or links like on charity pages, on .gov.uk domains, on educational websites, the traditional press. And we're thinking a bit differently with that. And those require completely bespoke strategies. We did one a couple of years ago where we really wanted to land the link on quickfit.com because it was a really niche, relevant link for one of our clients. And we did a whole campaign just to get that one link. And we did get it. But
that's work.
But we had to do a whole campaign to get that one link, but it was such a valuable link from the link gap that it was worth it. So I think it just depends what your strategy is. Sometimes things are widespread and it can be sent out to a load of different journalists. Sometimes you're really like, we want to get on that one publication and we'll do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many ways we can go with this conversation. I think the two other things that I think are really important are measurement, but then also think you guys do a great job of kind of stepping outside of just the getting links in publications, or I should say, stepping outside of just we created a blog post for you, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, I feel like you get into social assets and visual assets and physical assets. So let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the ones that I like that you guys had done, I'm going to give you just this prompt. Can you tell me more about pickles and chocolate protein shakes?
Yeah, random, I know. We work with ProteinWorks. So they are a nutrition company that sell a lot of meal replacement shakes, protein shakes, that kind of thing. We were originally on kind of just a digital PR link kind of KPI with them. We've since expanded that to social reach and more kind of organic search metrics as well. And actually now we're starting to look at things like LLMs and how they're appearing in those, and it's kind of expanded that way. But that campaign, we were trying to think, like, we want to do something in person, like we want to get, journalists involved, influencers involved. We did some consumer research and we were looking at, it was actually inspired by this like thing that people do when they dip their McDonald's chips or fries in the milkshakes, and they eat them like dipping.
Yeah.
I've seen this. I've never done it myself. I don't think it's for me.
You got to try it.
We saw that and we were like, right, people eat really weird combinations. So we'll do some consumer research and we'll ask their audience as well, because they're a really engaged audience, ProteinWorks. What weird combinations of food do they want to see? Like, what do they like? Did a social competition and we basically said you get like a year's supply, I think it was a year's supply of protein if you add a flavour combination that you want to see. And then we basically actually created a line of these like weird and wonderful flavour combinations in protein. But then to take it another level, we did like a day with journalists and content creators and influencers where we got them down and to actually try making these like really weird combinations, like trying them. Some of them are less weird. Like I think the mango and chili one was like actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
But some of them were, like pickle. I mean, I'm not really a pickle.
Pickles and chocolate,
yeah. Pickles and but then it was a good one. And I think getting the journalists there kind of increases the chance of getting the coverage because they're kind of immersed in the session with you. They kind of get what we're about. It gives us an opportunity to speak to them about the brand. And even if they don't cover that story in the future, it's going to be good for the relationships. And then also just from the client's point of view, they're obviously getting the coverage from that piece. Because we had the data angle, we had here's the weird flavours people on, that kind of thing. We had the in-person event as well. We had social content off the event as well, which had a good reach socially. So it kind of gave us like loads of different things to talk about. And just like a fun campaign. I just think I'm passionate, like PR is not just press. Like, it's social, it's real life, it's everything. It's big, it's bigger than just press. So I think that was a good example of when we, I guess, yeah, took it offline, I guess, really.
Yeah, yeah, and I think maybe the hurdle for a lot of people in that regard, I mean, there's a handful I could think of, it's like getting the client, like it sounded like you started, like you said, you started in more of kind of traditional
Yeah.
digital PR, just getting links, right? And then you were only able to do this once you kind of broaden the scope of your work, right? But I mean, do you think there's opportunity for agencies that are just doing digital PR to do something like this
Yeah.
that can just still get links?
Yeah, definitely 100%. Like I say, I think PR, especially now, like journalists are looking all over TikTok to get their news. So you need to be doing stuff that is appearing on other channels as well. I think the selling to the client, you have to kind of take them on the journey with you and the journey for the user, or the customer that might see this thing in the real world. And maybe they scan a QR code and it takes them onto some sort of landing page, which we're also building links to it. You kind of have to take them on the journey with you. I think, it's just about connecting the dots, like these offline activations can work online and digitally. You just need to be able to like think of the best way of doing it that doesn't feel forced. But I mean, like I say, we have our best relationships with clients where we're collaborating with more teams, so their social team, their PR team, their SEO team, and these kind of events or like stunts that involve the social team, especially, like, they love that because then everyone's kind of, we're all trying to achieve the same goal together and like everyone's working on the same
Yeah.
thing together. So it kind of works really well. And I think obviously things like budget can be a consideration with these bigger sort of PR stunts. But I would say, we always ask our clients, what campaigns have you seen that you want to do? Like, who inspires you from a marketing point of view? And those kind of conversations really help us to work out, is there appetite for these kind of creative things? Or actually, do you just want a digital PR campaign, which is fine too. But I think it's all like asking the right questions to the right people. So I'd say go for it. If people want to do it, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. I know it can be challenging too for brands to kind of think through the steps. And again, like this idea of like these hurdles being involved before getting like a super creative thing. Like I remember I had Darren Kingman on from Root Digital.
Yeah.
And we talked a long time ago, this was last year, about, some of the most creative campaigns that you see often, take a lot of work behind the scenes, right? And usually you have to step outside of the bounds of your typical formats. And one of them we've talked about was like the swabbing. It was like you see these campaigns like your phone is dirtier than a toilet seat or something. And like, so I think, and I actually saw this on LinkedIn too, like it was a poll. And, when you're getting into digital PR, one of the biggest hurdles is data collection.
Yes.
So I think of that in this case, like, how do I show that a toilet seat is dirtier than a phone, if you're a whatever cleaning supply company. And in your case, it was, how do I get all this together, right? Like, I know the trend is protein shakes, like everyone's into protein shakes, or I know that's this idea that people like mixing flavors. Okay, so how do I, like you're constantly kind of solving these problems. And I think a lot of people get into that. It's like, okay, the problem solving, but then also there's limitations to the time, right? Like you might get a client and you have 2 months to do this, your ideation, your brainstorm happens and all of a sudden your designers aren't ready in time or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's all these challenges. So if you could talk through some of that and just kind of how you recommend people approach some of those challenges.
Yeah. I would say in general, give yourself longer than what you think it's going to take. Your campaign, like, don't overpromise to the client. Be I don't know, be realistic with timelines, I think, with you and the client as well. It's really easy to overpromise, and we've all done it. Like, yeah, we can do this, like, massive campaign in 3 weeks, no problem, absolutely fine. And then you start doing it and you realize you can't. And then everyone's like not sleeping and it's crazy. So I feel like being really honest with yourself and the client in what's achievable. I mean, we usually take 4 to 6 weeks to run a campaign. That's what we always say. And we can do it quicker. Like at the moment, we're doing one which I'm so excited about. We did like a video shoot this week and it's for a charity. It's going to be an amazing piece. We've turned that around in 3 weeks. So that one has been like all hands on deck. But it requires things like the client have been amazing with sign off. Like it requires that two-way relationship. I think these bigger campaigns do take longer. I also think the initial planning phase is so important. Like when you're pitching the idea, if you've already got a really good idea of how it's all going to work, we've got a proposed roadmap, we know we need to do this, we know we need to make sure we've got sign off by this date for this to go live on this date. Like, we're really clear right from the beginning, and it kind of should touch wood, things won't go wrong, but it should kind of play out the way you want it to. But I would say, yeah, don't overpromise with these bigger campaigns.
Yeah.
The more cooks, I guess, if you're involving, especially if you're involving third parties with like creators or anything like that, it's another party to kind of be a delay, really. So I think it's just about good planning, not overcomplicating it, not over delivering.
Yeah. I mean, do you ever feel like you're kind of hindered by the fact that you maybe aren't able to access data? Like, creativity can obviously be hindered by a variety of factors, but like, I remember that being a big piece when I'm like brainstorming. You're like, the question is always, or the feedback from your manager is always, great idea, how in the heck are we going to do this? You know?
100%. Or like, we went through a phase where I felt like we kept being like, let's just do a survey, and I'm like, I know, but they cost so much money. We can, but can we think of another way to get the data? And I know, I think data is really so valuable, but also really hard. And I think, especially with things like AI coming into play now, like trust of the sources of the data is being kind of scrutinized a bit now, because I had this idea once where we wanted to basically for our like a bathroom client, we wanted to look at in the UK, like Wetherspoons pubs, there's a big chain of Wetherspoons pubs, the toilets are always miles and miles and miles away from the pub, from the bar. So we wanted to do a campaign where it was like
funny, yeah,
the length of the community toilet. And
love that.
I was like, ChatGPT, can you? Because we were like, how are we going to get this data? Like, we're going to have to go to every single Wetherspoons pub in the whole country to try and like do steps. Like, it's going to be crazy. Then it was when ChatGPT like just come out. So we asked him, we were like, can you tell us the floor plans of all these restaurants? And it was like, yeah, no problem. Got all the floor plans. We started asking it again and again, like, where have you got these floor plans from? And it was like, floorplans.com. And we kept asking. Then it was like, oh, actually, yeah, I've just made it up. I mean, what do you mean you just made it up? So like, I think like people are using AI now for that kind of thing, and it isn't trustworthy. And I do think that was a good example of us. Like, we had this great idea and then we got stuck at data, and we didn't do the campaign in the end because we literally were like, we can't do it. I think there was a lot of good data sets out there. There are. And I think we're now asking clients at onboarding stage, do you have that internal data as well, which is a gold mine if they do. Like, sometimes they can't share it or we can anonymize it, but we've got a few clients where they've got loads, they're really into data themselves, but the challenge is like, they've got the data, but no one internally knows what to do with it or how to use it. So we're like, give it to us. We can look at it. We can find things.
Yeah.
That's the dream. If the client's got a big data set, for sure.
Yeah. I like mine's going a mile a minute trying to think about how you could have done that piece. Cause I just saw one recently, Kuru Footwear, Victoria Schmid, who's been on our podcast a couple times. She did one about the airports with like the longest walking distances, like it's kind of similar campaign. I think, I want to ask you more about AI, like using it in your workflow, but like I do think there's potentially more opportunities for people to do kind of creative stuff. I found one campaign the other day I shared in our newsletter where it was like somebody was able to take Google Maps and wrote this program that like looked at all of the text on all of the street signs within New York City.
Okay.
And then you could go in and just search like the word pizza, and it'll come up with all these visuals from all, and so I think AI and the coder that built this was like, used AI to help, obviously. Yeah. And I think from that perspective, it's like AI is lowering the barrier of entry for those types of at least analyses. And it's just a matter of like maybe agencies needing to find these super smart coders who are,
You don't know what to ask for, I think, sometimes. Like, you don't know how to prompt it, or you don't know quite what to say to get the right... It exists, you just can't get to it.
Yeah. 100%. Well, so tell me a little bit more about how you use AI in part of your ideation process.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I'm just controversial and maybe I'll regret saying this in like a year's time, but like I'm not there with AI yet in terms of creativity. I don't think it's as good as a human. I really don't. And I think I'm yet to see a idea come from AI that isn't better than what one of the team could create. Like, I really do. I think once you've gotten a good idea, it can sometimes help you shape it, but you have to input something of value into it first to get it back out of it. I think, I mean, I hope none of the team do this, but I would doubt if you find like come up with a creative idea for blah blah blah, like
Yeah,
it shouldn't be used for that. I think, like I say, if you've got a starter and you just need a bit of like help to tweak it a little bit, okay. But if you think about the way it's working, it's just analyzing loads of stuff that already exists and mushing it into something new. So I'm like, well, we want to be thinking of something new, so that it's not going to work. So we don't use it loads for ideation. The only thing I would say it has been great for is mock-ups of like weird things that we want to put in a campaign. So say like we have had a lot of very weird ideas, and sometimes when you talk them through to a client, they're like looking at me like, what on earth are you talking about? And being able to have like we used to do Midjourney, and obviously now that we use ChatGPT with the images on there, to be like, can you create an image of this thing? And then we can show the client what it could look like. Obviously, it's AI generated. It might not look like that, but it helps to illustrate the story you're trying to tell with your ideation. So we've used it more for like mock-up, like creative mock-ups and kind of scamps, really, rather than like coming up with the initial idea.
I've heard of that. A handful
Yeah.
of agencies doing it that way. Yeah, the mock-ups. I
Yeah.
love that idea.
Yeah.
I've gotten, we do that with our pieces too. Like I'll struggling with like data visualization for something, and like my colleague Steven will be like, I just put this in the Claude, like check out how they're doing it. And it just like gives you a different angle to think about things sometimes. Yeah,
I think so. And then kind of wider than that, I guess we don't use it loads and loads. I think data analysis is quite good again if you've got the data set and you want to just be like, it can save hours and hours and hours of somebody's time. And then when it comes to like writing and press releases and stuff like that, like no, I think
yeah,
I mean, I
it's not
think you
even
can
close.
spot it from a mile off. Like I still think the tone it writes with and is off. And I would hate our clients to come to us and be like, are you just using AI for all this? Because then they'll just leave. So I think as it stands at the moment, we're using it a little bit. Ideation process, we're using it for like mock-ups really, but I still think, I don't know, I went to a conference once and they were calling it like your clumsy assistant, and I quite like that way of thinking about it. Like it's there, but it's not going to get it right. It's not going to be better than you. So it's just like how you can use it to save you time on the bits that it can be used for, to free you up to do the other bits. That's kind of how I'm seeing it at the moment. Maybe if it comes and takes all of my jobs, maybe I'll regret saying that, but...
No, I think you're right. I mean, there's definitely always going to be that human element, especially with ideation and just, unless you know how to prompt it the right way. Like I've always called it a brainstorm buddy. Like it can help kind of start the seed of, you thinking in the right direction. But ultimately it's going to come down to you.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, and I might be wrong about this, but I think you used AI as image creation for Jordan Rees. Tell me about your Jordan Rees campaign.
So we actually didn't use AI for that. We actually did a actual...
Oh, that's a real person. Okay. Cool. All right.
That was like 3 years ago, maybe. So it's a good story, this one. I think we just launched. So we'd obviously made this big deal about creativity not being dead. Campaigns aren't dead. Like we're coming in a very saturated industry with campaigns. We were like, we need to launch with a good campaign. We cannot do something boring as our first campaign. It has to be good because we've talked forever about creativity. And we were working with a gambling client at the time, and obviously gambling clients can be quite difficult. The press agenda around that and the journalists, how they want to talk about gambling is difficult. We had a briefing for a gambling awareness week. And we found that kind of all gambling awareness campaigns are the same. They usually stick a celebrity in front of the camera and say like, gamble less. That's usually the messaging, and they're all very similar. So we were like, what can we do to cut through? And then we did some research and we found out, I think it was something like 70% of people who gamble don't research their bets. And we looked at kind of where people get their betting information from. Who are they getting from their friends? Are they getting it from social media? Like where are they going to where they're going to place their bets? And we found out people don't research their bets. So we were like, okay, let's maybe test this. So we basically created this fake footballer called Jordan Rees. We hired a model. We did a shoot with this guy, and he never played football before. I don't know why I went with him, because he literally couldn't kick the ball. But anyway, and then we basically created this landing page. And we worked with football influencers, football meme pages, basically to build up this hype around Jordan Rees, saying that the odds were great for him being in the next England squad. And we were like riling up football fans. They were like, but people were believing it, and they were being like, yeah, who even is this guy? Like, why is he going to be in the England squad? Like getting a bit like heated about it. I think the football community is very passionate, obviously. So create this guy, did all these images, did all this promotion through kind of influencers and social. And then we basically drove people through to this landing page where they could find out more about placing a bet on Jordan Rees. And then they were hit with the messaging like, Jordan Rees is not real. You need to research your bets. So it was kind of a bit like getting people towards this webpage, then educate them on gambling awareness. So I feel like it was a really good example of, doing quite a difficult industry, thinking a bit more creatively about it, and using a channel that wasn't the press to kind of build the hype up. I think one of the headlines that we pitched was something like 5,000 people try to bet on a football that doesn't exist. So we could be quite clever with that messaging there as well. And it was a really nice one. I think it gave us something to talk about in terms of a case study from ourselves on ideation and creativity right from the start. So yeah, it was a fun one. But yeah, we did do a real shoot for that one. That was I feel that was before AI. It wasn't, but it just feel like it was before.
Yeah. I wonder. Right. I guess so. You probably could redo it all now and use banana, whatever. Okay, I think is a good transition to measurement, because that, to me, that campaign specifically, I mean, the one with the protein one too, you're kind of getting involved in a handful of different things. You're creating kind of more, you're creating memes, you're getting involved in social, your influencers are getting involved. So like with a traditional, maybe traditional like PR outlet or agency, or maybe even like an ad agency, like the metrics that they're looking at are probably just like share of voice and likes for, like that sort of thing, and maybe, placements. But talk to me about now how you would measure something like that, and how that's more beneficial than just looking at links or something.
Yeah, I mean, we have different packages that we work on with clients. They're all in bottles because that's our brand. And the bottom one, which is pure imagination, that is just for people that want to build links. That's the KPI. We'll set a minimum DA. We're looking at high quality links. We don't build rubbish links for our clients. And then we kind of have the next one, which is planned, and that's where our search and insights team get more involved. They'll be doing more kind of search consulting, looking at the organic visibility and how what that looks like. They also might start to look at things like LLM. Are we ranking in LLMs, or do we need to be thinking about the earned media strategy and how that plays into LLMs? And they're looking at ranking changes and that kind of thing. And then our kind of like full whack package, I guess, is the full imagination, which would be with looking at links, we're looking at organic visibility, search visibility, and also we're looking at social as well. So we're looking at reach, we're looking at follower growth, whatever it is that we want to work on for that specific campaign. It's got a bit more of a well-rounded strategy. A lot of our clients do still want backlinks, and we do think that is a metric that we will continue to measure. We're also starting to measure brand mentions now a lot more, because we do feel like that's going to be almost as important as links going forwards. It just depends on the client really, and what they want from the work. We tend to work with SEOs, but sometimes we are working with PRs and they want something totally different to what the SEO team want. And so it's just whatever from the onboarding and from the kind of like qualifying. I think it's like what their real goal is. Like, they want links to what people actually want. And we always talk to the team about like actual goals. Like, it's like, there's no point telling the client you built 10 links. Like, so what? And we actually call it our so what reporting. So our reporting structure is called so what, and it's like asking yourself so what, so you've got something of value, because then you can actually talk to the client about that. But we've seen it before, like you've hit a KPI and you've still lost the client, like it doesn't fit what they're actually trying to achieve. Is it leads? Is it sales of a specific product? Like, what is the CEO actually wanting, and the CMO, what do they actually want to hear? So I think we've put that kind of framing on our reporting to try and get everybody from execs all the way up to our account directors thinking about that value exchange and what we're actually bringing to the client and what they actually want to see, which I think has been really helped conversations, I think, in terms of that ROI piece, because we're able to kind of attribute what we're doing to the wider marketing goals of the brand.
Yeah, that's a fantastic message. I mean, ultimately, if you're just focusing on the links, I say this all the time, it's like you're focusing on the vanity metrics, focusing on links and organic traffic, even if that is what the client wants.
Yeah.
If their bottom line, if it's not impacting the bottom line, you're not going to have a job. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not digging into it like that. I love that, the so what reporting method. I think that's probably a good place to end, Katy, because I think, that's a great message for people to remember when they're coming up with these creative campaigns, and, push your clients, push your brand to think through this stuff. Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask, Katy, that you wish we would have chatted through today?
I don't think so. I think that's it. I think it's just like we want to be thinking bigger than digital PR. I'm like really stuck at the moment on this like digital PR versus PR thing, because I feel like PR is PR. I feel like we're all trying to do the same thing, just maybe different strands of it. And I think it's very easy for digital PRs to get stuck in a rut that they've always done that's always worked. But like, why not just think bigger and think better and think like these advertising agencies or these big creative agencies? Like, we can do that. They're still going to work for search. Like, if you think about it properly, and you think about the measurement that you want to get out of it, and you think about what's online, and you think about who you're targeting press-wise or elsewhere, I think we can be more clever and we can be more creative. I think don't limit yourself. I think that is what I just feel with kind of digital PR.
Love it. Don't limit yourself, people. Katy, thank you so much for joining. People can connect with Katy on LinkedIn. Bottled Imagination, definitely check out their website. It's just bottledImagination.com. Check out some of the case studies that I mentioned here, but I'll also throw them in the links, in the show links. Katy, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Reminder, people, like, subscribe. If you have any questions about campaigns, ideation, Bottled Imagination in general, please put them in the comments, and I'll be happy to forward them along to Katy, or she can jump in there and answer them too. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Katy, and good luck out there.